The wind howled across the barren ice fields of Kepler 442c, like a living thing, carrying crystals of frozen methane that could strip paint from metal in minutes. Marcus Chen pulled his thermal suit tighter and checked the readings on his wrist display. -78 degrees Celsius and dropping. The storm was getting worse. "All teams, this is Chen." He spoke into his comm unit, his breath forming clouds even inside his helmet. "Storm's picking up faster than predicted. I want everyone back to base camp in 30 minutes. No exceptions." The responses crackled back through the static. His mining crew of 47 humans and 12 Zentorian supervisors were scattered across the excavation site, pulling rare earth elements from the frozen ground. The Zentorians, with their blue-scaled skin and towering 7-foot frames, usually handled cold better than humans, but even they were struggling with this weather. Marcus had been foreman on Kepler 442c for 3 years now. The Galactic Mining Consortium had chosen this frozen hell of a planet because it was rich in trilithium deposits, essential for faster-than-light engines. The pay was incredible, but the conditions were brutal. Most species in the galaxy couldn't survive here for more than a few hours without life support. Humans, somehow, could. It wasn't that humans were naturally suited for extreme cold. Rather, they were naturally suited for surviving anywhere. They could adapt their technology, their tactics, their entire way of thinking to overcome obstacles that would stop other species cold. Literally, in this case, Foreman Chen, came the voice of Supervisor Jektal, one of the Zentorians. "My thermal readings show a massive storm front approaching from the northern quadrant. We may need to evacuate to the orbital station." Marcus squinted through the swirling snow at the distant mountains. The Zentorians were cautious by nature, which made them excellent supervisors. But sometimes they were too cautious. "Negative, Supervisor. Base camp can handle a Category 4 storm. We've weathered worse." Marcus started walking toward the main excavation pit, his boots crunching through the knee-deep snow. Just get everyone inside the thermal barriers. As he crested the ridge overlooking the mining site, something caught his eye. A dark speck, moving against the white landscape, coming from the direction of the mountains. Marcus activated his scope and zoomed in. What he saw made him stop dead in his tracks. 3 creatures were struggling through the snow toward their camp. At first glance, Marcus thought they might be some kind of local wildlife, but as they got closer, he realized they were definitely sentient beings. They walked upright, though they were clearly struggling against the wind. The largest one was roughly human-sized, while 2 smaller figures flanked it. But it was their appearance that made Marcus's breath catch in his throat. They looked like dragons, not the fire-breathing monsters from human mythology, but something far more elegant. Their bodies were covered in scales that shifted color from deep purple to silver as they moved. They had long, graceful necks, 4 legs that ended in clawed hands and feet, and folded wings pressed tight against their backs. The largest one was carrying something, a bundle wrapped in what looked like torn fabric. Marcus had never seen anything like them before. In 3 years of working with a dozen different alien species, he'd never encountered these creatures. They weren't in any of the consortium's databases, and they were dying. Even from a distance, Marcus could see they were in trouble. Their movements were sluggish, and they kept stumbling. The smallest one fell into the snow and didn't get up immediately. The largest creature dropped its bundle and helped the small one to its feet, but Marcus could see the desperation in their movements. "Control, this is Chen," Marcus said into his comm. "I've got 3 unidentified beings approaching from Sector 7. They appear to be in distress." "Foreman," came Supervisor Jektal's voice, now tight with concern. "Unknown species could present a contamination risk. Consortium protocols require quarantine procedures." Marcus watched as the largest creature stumbled and fell to one knee. The 2 smaller ones huddled around it, trying to shield it from the wind with their wings. The bundle it had been carrying lay forgotten in the snow. "Protocols can wait," Marcus said, already moving down the slope toward them. "They're freezing to death. Foreman Chen, you are ordered to maintain distance until proper containment procedures can be implemented." Marcus ignored the supervisor and activated his emergency beacon. All teams, Emergency Protocol 7. I need medics and thermal equipment at my location immediately. As he got closer, Marcus could see the creatures more clearly. Their scales, which probably provided excellent insulation in warmer climates, were covered with a layer of ice. Their breathing was labored, and frost was forming around their nostrils. The smallest one, barely the size of a human child, was barely conscious. The largest creature saw Marcus approaching and tried to position itself between him and the others. Despite its obvious weakness, it spread its wings in what was clearly a defensive posture. Its eyes, large and golden, fixed on Marcus with a mixture of fear and determination. Marcus stopped about 10 feet away and slowly removed his helmet. The cold hit his face like a physical blow, but he wanted them to see he was trying to communicate peacefully. "Hey there," he said softly, the way he might talk to a frightened animal. "I'm not going to hurt you." The creature tilted its head, studying him. Then, to Marcus's amazement, it spoke. The words came out as a series of musical tones, like someone playing notes on a flute. The universal translator in Marcus's suit processed the sounds and converted them to English. "Please." The translator rendered the creature's words. "My family. We are cold. So cold. Our ship." The creature gestured weakly toward the mountains. "Crashed, days ago. Please, the little ones." Marcus felt something twist in his chest. The bundle the creature had been carrying wasn't supplies or equipment. It was another being, even smaller than the others. "Jesus," Marcus whispered. Then, louder, "It's okay. We're going to help you." "Foreman Chen." Supervisor Jektal's voice crackled through the comm with urgency. "You are in violation of first contact protocols. Step away from the unknown entities. Immediately." Marcus looked back toward the mining camp, where he could see figures moving behind the thermal barriers. His crew was watching, waiting to see what he would do. The smart thing, the safe thing, would be to wait for the xenobiology team to arrive from the orbital station. They had proper containment equipment, decontamination procedures, all the things consortium regulations required. But Marcus looked at the small creature lying motionless in the snow, then at the desperate golden eyes of what was clearly its parent, and made a decision that would change everything. He activated his suit's emergency thermal generator and stepped forward. "I'm Marcus," he said, moving slowly toward them. "Let me help." The large creature backed away slightly, but it was too weak to go far. You help us?" "But we are nothing to you. We have nothing to trade." Marcus knelt down next to the smallest creature and gently touched its neck, checking for a pulse. The scales were ice cold, but he could feel a faint heartbeat. "You don't need to trade anything. You're hurt, and I can help. That's enough." Behind him, Marcus could hear the rumble of snow vehicles approaching. His medical team was coming, along with thermal equipment, and probably Supervisor Jektal, ready to throw regulations at him. The large creature, Marcus was starting to think of it as the mother, stared at him in amazement. But the laws of your people. Surely you must follow protocols." Marcus smiled grimly as he activated his suit's thermal blanket and wrapped it around the unconscious little one. "Yeah, well, sometimes the right thing to do isn't the same as following the rules." The mother's golden eyes widened. "You would risk punishment? For us? But we are strangers. We are not even your species." "Where I come from," Marcus said, gently lifting the small creature, "we don't leave kids out in the cold, no matter what species they are." Dr. Sarah Kim was the first to reach them, her medical scanner already out and running diagnostics. She took one look at the three dragon-like beings and immediately switched to crisis mode. "Severe hypothermia across all three subjects," she reported. "Neural activity is depressed but stable. I need thermal units now." "Dr. Kim," came Supervisor Jektal's voice as he approached, flanked by two security officers. "You are not authorized to treat unknown species without proper quarantine procedures." Sarah looked up from her scanner with the expression she usually reserved for people who interrupted her while she was saving lives. Supervisor, with all due respect, these beings will be dead in 20 minutes if we follow quarantine procedures. I'm not about to watch children die because of paperwork. Marcus stood up, still holding the smallest creature. Around them, his crew had formed a protective circle, setting up portable thermal generators and windshields. Nobody had asked for permission. They had just started working. Foreman Chen. Supervisor Jektal said, his voice stiff with disapproval. This is a serious violation of consortium protocols. I am required to report this incident to Central Command. Marcus looked at the Zentarian supervisor, then at the mother dragon who was watching the exchange with growing confusion. Go ahead and report it. But first, help me save their lives. This is not your decision to make. These beings could carry pathogens dangerous to consortium species. They could be hostile. They could be someone's family, Marcus interrupted. He looked down at the small creature in his arms, its breathing shallow but steady. Look, I get it. There are rules. There are procedures, but sometimes being human means doing what's right instead of what's safe. The mother dragon had been listening to this exchange through the universal translator, her head moving back and forth between Marcus and the supervisor like she was watching a tennis match. Finally, she spoke up. Please, she said, her musical voice barely audible over the wind. My name is Lirale. These are my offspring, Zara and little Pip. She gestured to the unconscious one in Marcus's arms. We have traveled far. Our homeworld. It is gone. We seek only shelter from the cold. Supervisor Jektal stiffened. You are refugees? From where? What happened to your homeworld? Lirale's voice took on a note of grief that needed no translation. The Devourers came 3 cycles ago. They consumed our star. We were one of the few ships that escaped, but our navigation systems failed, and we have been drifting. Marcus felt the weight of the small creature in his arms and made another decision. That settles it. Sarah, get them into the medical bay. Full thermal treatment. Foreman, I must insist, Supervisor Jektal began. No. Marcus's voice carried the authority of someone who had made life or death decisions every day for 3 years. I'm responsible for the safety of everyone on this base. That includes these 3, as of right now. He looked around at his crew. They were all watching, waiting to see what happened next. These were good people, humans who had chosen to work in one of the most dangerous jobs in the galaxy because the pay was good and the work mattered. They understood what it meant to look out for each other. Anyone who has a problem with that can file a complaint with Central Command, Marcus continued. But these beings need help now, and we're going to give it to them. Dr. Kim was already working, attaching thermal patches to the 3 dragons and monitoring their vital signs. Temperatures rising. Neural activity is improving. They're going to make it. As Marcus helped carry little Pip toward the medical facility, Lirale walked beside him. Her movements were steadier now that she was warming up, and there was something in her golden eyes that he hadn't seen before. Hope. Marcus, she said quietly. Why do you risk so much for strangers? Marcus thought about it for a moment. Because someone has to. And because that's what humans do. We're not the strongest species in the galaxy, or the smartest, or the most advanced, but we don't give up on each other. And that includes anyone who needs help. Lirale was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something that made Marcus stop walking. In all my travels across the galaxy, she said, I have met many species. Zentorians are honorable but cautious. Vorthok are intelligent but selfish. Klaxons are powerful but cruel. But you are the first beings I have met who help others, not because they must, but because they choose to. Marcus felt his crew listening, felt the weight of Supervisor Jektal's disapproval, felt the storm raging around them. In a few hours, Central Command would hear about this. There would be investigations, disciplinary hearings, probably a formal reprimand on his permanent record. But as he looked down at the small creature in his arms, now breathing steadily and showing the first hints of color returning to its scales, Marcus knew he had made the right choice. Welcome to Earth hospitality, he said with a grin. Hope you like coffee. Because we're going to be drinking a lot of it while we figure out how to get you somewhere safe. Behind them, the storm continued to rage. But inside the base, as Dr. Kim worked to stabilize their new guests, and the crew rallied around their foreman's decision, something else was beginning. A friendship that would change how the galaxy saw humanity forever. 6 hours later, Marcus stood in the communications bay, staring at the holographic display that showed the stern face of Consortium Admiral Vexthor. The Regellian's forearms were crossed in what Marcus had learned was a sign of extreme displeasure, and her compound eyes glittered with barely contained anger. Foreman Chen, the Admiral said, her translator rendering her clicking speech into crisp, formal English. You have created an unprecedented diplomatic incident. 3 unidentified beings. No biological scans. No quarantine procedures. No authorization from Central Command. Do you have any idea what you have done? Marcus glanced through the medical bay window, where Dr. Kim was checking on her 3 patients. Lirelei was awake now, sitting up in the thermal bed, while her children slept peacefully beside her. The smallest one, Pip, was actually snoring, making tiny musical sounds that somehow managed to be adorable, despite coming from a creature that looked like a miniature dragon. I saved 3 lives, Marcus said simply. Ma'am, Admiral Vexthor's mandibles clicked in irritation. You violated 17 different consortium protocols. First contact procedures exist for a reason. Foreman, unknown species could carry pathogens, could be hostile, could be a family running from genocidal monsters, Marcus interrupted. Which, as it turns out, is exactly what they are. Behind the Admiral, Marcus could see other figures moving around the command center of the orbital station. Word was spreading fast. In 12 hours, there would probably be xenobiology teams, diplomats, and military advisors all descending on his little mining operation. That is not the point, Admiral Vexthor said. The point is that you acted unilaterally, without proper authority. Supervisor Jektal has recommended that you be removed from your position immediately. Marcus wasn't surprised. Jektal had been filing reports every hour since the incident, each one more formal and disapproving than the last. The Zentorian supervisor was a good being, but he lived and breathed regulations. With respect, Admiral, Marcus said, I'd like to speak with Lirelei before any decisions are made about their status. She might have information that changes how we handle this situation. The Admiral's compound eyes studied him for a long moment. Very well. But Foreman, understand that your career with the consortium may already be over. I suggest you consider your next words very carefully. The hologram flickered off, leaving Marcus alone with his thoughts. He walked back to the medical bay, where Dr. Kim was running final scans on their guests. How are they doing? Marcus asked. Better than I expected, Sarah said, not looking up from her scanner. Their physiology is fascinating. They're adapted for much warmer climates. But their body chemistry is incredibly resilient. It's like they have built-in redundancies for survival. Lirelei turned at the sound of Marcus's voice, and he was struck again by how expressive her golden eyes were. Marcus, she said, I wish to thank you again, but I fear I have brought trouble to you and your people. Marcus pulled up a chair and sat down beside her bed. Don't worry about that. Tell me about your home world. What were your people called? Liralei's scales shifted from purple to a deeper blue, and Marcus was beginning to realize that the color changes reflected her emotions. We are the Drakmori. Our world was called Cythera, and it orbited a binary star system in what you would call the Vega sector. We were a peaceful people. Artists, philosophers, singers. We had no weapons of war, no military fleets. When the Devourers came, she trailed off, her scales shifting to a dull gray that Marcus suspected meant grief or despair. The Devourers, Marcus prompted gently. I've heard that name before. They're the ones responsible for the dead systems in the Outer Rim? Oh, yes, Lirelei whispered. They consume stars, drain them of their energy until they collapse. Entire solar systems die in darkness and cold. They came to Sithara without warning. We had perhaps 6 hours from the first attack until our sun began to dim. Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the planet's temperature. How many of your people escaped? Perhaps a dozen ships. Maybe less. We scattered in different directions, hoping some of us would survive to carry on our culture, our songs, our stories. Lirelei looked down at her sleeping children. I have been traveling for 3 cycles, seeking a world where my offspring can grow safely. But everywhere we go, we are turned away. No space, they say. No resources. Apply through proper channels. Marcus stood up and walked to the window that looked out over the ice fields. In the distance, he could see the lights of the mining operation continuing despite the storm. His crew was working double shifts to make up for the lost time from the rescue operation. What about other consortium worlds? Surely someone would take in refugees. The consortium has strict immigration policies, Lirelei said bitterly. Beings without citizenship papers, without guarantors, without economic value, we are what you might call undesirable. We have been to 14 different worlds. All have turned us away. Sarah looked up from her scanner, her expression troubled. You should see this. I've been analyzing their ship's crash site with the long-range sensors. It's not just damaged, it's completely dead. Whatever they were using for power, it's gone. They can't leave on their own. Marcus felt a familiar weight settling on his shoulders. It was the same feeling he got when a piece of mining equipment broke down in a critical area, or when a crew member got injured far from help. The feeling that said, this is your problem now, and there's only one person who can solve it. How long would it take to repair their ship? He asked. Sarah shook her head. From what I can see, it's not repairable. The power core is completely fried, and the navigation systems were damaged in the crash. Even if we had the parts, which we don't, it would take months. Lirelei had been listening to this exchange with growing distress. I understand. We cannot stay here. We have no right to impose on your hospitality. If you could perhaps contact— Hold on, Marcus said, holding up a hand. Nobody said anything about you leaving. I'm just trying to figure out what our options are. He turned to Sarah. What would it take to get them passage to a consortium world that accepts refugees? Marcus, Sarah said quietly. There aren't any. Not anymore. After the Devourer attacks started, every species got scared about security. Immigration laws got stricter. Even if we could get them papers, the waiting list for refugee status is something like 40 years. Marcus walked back to Lirelei's bedside. The dragon woman was looking down at her children, her scales now a deep, sad blue. 40 years, she murmured. My children will be grown. They will have forgotten the songs of our people. Not necessarily, Marcus said. Both Lirelei and Sarah looked at him with surprise. What do you mean? Lirelei asked. Marcus was quiet for a moment, thinking through the implications of what he was about to suggest. Then he made another decision that would probably end his career. How do you feel about mining? He asked. Lirelei tilted her head in confusion. What? Mining. Digging up rocks, processing ore, that sort of thing. It's not glamorous work, but it pays well, and the consortium is always looking for experienced crews. Sarah stared at him. Marcus, what are you thinking? Marcus grinned. I'm thinking that the Galactic Mining Consortium has special provisions for hiring skilled workers on emergency bases. No immigration papers required, just a work contract and a supervisor's recommendation. But they're not skilled miners, Sarah pointed out. Yet, Marcus said. But they're intelligent. They're adaptable. And they need work. I've seen humans go from complete novices to expert miners in 6 months. I bet the Drakmori can do the same. Lirelei was staring at him in amazement. You would employ us? Here? On this frozen world? If you're willing. The work is hard, and the conditions are rough. But you'd have housing, food, medical care, and most importantly, legal status within consortium space. After a few years, you could apply for citizenship, or save up enough money to buy passage to a better world. The silence stretched out for a long moment. Then, little Pip stirred in his sleep, making those small musical sounds again. Lorelei reached out and gently stroked his scales. "To keep my children safe," she said quietly, "I would mine the heart of a star." Marcus was about to respond when his comm unit chimed with an incoming message. He glanced at the display and winced. Admiral Vex Thor was calling for another conference. This one included additional figures that Marcus recognized. Director Kine of the Mining Consortium's Human Resources Division, and Ambassador Thrill of the Zentorian Cultural Authority. "Sarah, stay with them," Marcus said. "I've got to go deal with more bureaucrats." The holographic conference room materialized around Marcus, showing him standing in the middle of a circle of alien officials. Admiral Vex Thor looked even more irritated than before. Director Kane appeared to be reading from a datapad with a frown. And Ambassador Thrill seemed genuinely puzzled. "Foreman Chen," Admiral Vex Thor began, "we have received your request to hire the unknown aliens as mining crew. This is absolutely unprecedented." "So was the situation that led to it," Marcus replied. "Admiral, with respect, these people are refugees from a galactic catastrophe. They're not security threats. They're survivors who need help." Director Kane looked up from her datapad. "Foreman, hiring unregistered aliens violates 17 separate employment regulations. Their biology hasn't been fully tested for compatibility with standard equipment. They have no work experience in hazardous environments. This is completely irregular." "Director," Marcus said, "I've been running mining operations for 8 years. I know how to train crew and I know how to keep people safe. Give me 6 months and I'll have them certified on every piece of equipment we use." Ambassador Thrill spoke up for the first time. "Foreman Chen, while your intentions may be admirable, the precedent this sets is extremely concerning. If word spreads that the consortium accepts undocumented refugees, we could face massive immigration pressure from displaced populations across the galaxy." Marcus looked around at the three officials, seeing caution, regulations, and political concerns in their faces. Then he thought about Lorelei's golden eyes, about little Pip's snoring, about the determination in Zara's face when she had tried to protect her family in the snow. "You know what?" Marcus said. "You're right. This sets a precedent. It sets the precedent that when people are in trouble, when they're running from monsters and just trying to keep their families alive, the consortium will help instead of hiding behind paperwork." Admiral Vex Thor's mandibles clicked ominously. "Foreman, your emotional attachment to these beings is affecting your judgment. The regulations exist for good reasons." "The regulations," Marcus said, his voice rising slightly, "were written by people who never had to watch children freeze to death while filling out forms. These aren't policies to me. They're real beings with real lives." Director Kane was shaking her head. "This is exactly the kind of thinking that leads to security breaches and diplomatic incidents." XPR. XPR. Arasay. "No," Marcus said firmly. "This is the kind of thinking that makes us worth saving when the monsters come for us." The three officials exchanged glances, and Marcus could see them preparing to deny his request. He played his last card. "Director Kane, what's the current staffing level for mining operations in this sector?" 73%, she admitted. "But that's temporary." 73%, Marcus repeated. "And how long have you been trying to recruit qualified personnel for extreme environment work?" That's not relevant to this discussion. It's completely relevant. You need workers. And you need them to be tough, adaptable, and willing to work in impossible conditions. I've got 3 candidates who just survived a crash landing on one of the most hostile worlds in the galaxy, traveled for days through subarctic conditions, and are still determined to take care of their family. If that doesn't qualify as extreme environment experience, I don't know what does. Ambassador Thrill was quiet for a moment. "You make an intriguing point, Foreman. But the security concerns remain valid." "Then monitor them," Marcus said. "Give them probationary status, limited access, supervised work assignments, regular check-ins. But give them a chance. Admiral Vex's Thor's forearms gestured dismissively. This entire discussion is academic. Even if we were to consider such an arrangement, the beings in question would need to consent to extensive medical and psychological evaluation, cultural orientation, and occupational training. The process would take months. Admiral, Marcus said, they're refugees who have been traveling for 3 years, looking for a safe place to raise their children. I think they're motivated to stick with a training program. The silence stretched out. Marcus could see the officials considering, weighing regulations against practicality, security against compassion. Finally, Director Kane spoke. If, and I emphasize, if, we were to consider this arrangement, it would be entirely experimental. 6-month probationary contracts only. Any security issues, any performance problems, any complications at all, and they're immediately transferred off-world. Marcus felt his heart skip. You're seriously considering it? I'm considering the staffing shortage in extreme environment operations, Kane corrected, and the potential for positive publicity if this works out. The consortium could use some good press after the Rigel incident. Admiral Vexthor sighed, a sound like steam escaping from a pressure valve. Very well. Probationary status only, but Foreman Chen, understand that you are personally responsible for their performance, their behavior, and their integration into consortium society. Any problems will be charged to your account. Marcus grinned. Understood, Admiral. I won't let you down. When the hologram faded, Marcus stood alone in the communications bay for a moment, hardly believing what had just happened. Then he rushed back to the medical bay, where Lirelei was teaching her children a song in their musical language. Lirelei, Marcus said, slightly out of breath. How would you feel about learning to operate a thermal extraction unit? She looked up at him with confusion, then growing hope as he explained the arrangement. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. You would do this for us? She finally asked. You would risk your reputation, your career, to give strangers a chance? Marcus looked at little Pip, who was now awake and watching the conversation with bright, curious eyes. Lirelei, let me tell you something about humans. We're not the strongest species in the galaxy, or the smartest, or the most advanced. But we have something that other species sometimes forget they have. What is that? Marcus smiled. Hope. No matter how bad things get, no matter how impossible the situation looks, we never stop believing that we can make things better, and sometimes that's enough to actually make it happen. Outside the medical bay window, the storm was finally beginning to clear. In the distance, Marcus could see the first hints of dawn breaking over the ice fields, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold that reminded him of Lirelei's scales. It was going to be a good day for mining. 18 months later, Marcus stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed mining complex and watched Lirelei guide a massive thermal extraction unit through the ice with the precision of a surgeon. Her scales had adapted to the cold environment, shifting to a deeper purple-silver that seemed to absorb and reflect the planet's pale sunlight. She moved with the confidence of someone who had found their place in the world. Sector 7 thermal extraction complete. Her voice crackled through the comm, now fluent in technical mining terminology. Moving to Sector 8 for trilithium deposits analysis. Copy that, Lirelei, Marcus replied. Nice work. That's 3 days ahead of schedule. In the 18 months since the Drakmori family had arrived, everything had changed. What started as an emergency rescue had become the most successful integration program in consortium history. Word had spread throughout the galaxy about the human Foreman, who had defied regulations to save alien refugees, and the incredible results that followed. The door to the observation deck slid open, and Director Kane stepped inside. The human woman looked considerably more relaxed than she had during those first tense conversations. And she was carrying a datapad that Marcus suspected contained very good news. Afternoon, Marcus, she said, moving to stand beside him at the window. Impressive sight, isn't it? Below them, the mining operation had expanded to nearly twice its original size. The Drakmori hadn't just learned to operate mining equipment. They had revolutionized how the work was done. Their natural ability to sense thermal variations made them incredibly effective at locating deposits. Their musical communication allowed them to coordinate complex operations with a precision that amazed even veteran miners, and their artistic background had led to innovations in equipment design that increased efficiency by 30%. But more than that, their presence had changed the entire culture of the operation. The human miners had embraced their new colleagues with the same determination they brought to everything else, teaching them not just technical skills but human customs, humor, and the peculiar art of practical problem-solving that had made humans valuable throughout the galaxy. The quarterly reports just came in, Director Kane continued. This operation is now the most productive mining facility in the sector. Productivity is up 47%. Safety incidents are down 60%. And worker satisfaction scores are the highest we've ever recorded. Marcus smiled, watching as Zara emerged from an access tunnel, her scales bright with excitement as she reported her findings to her mother. The young Drakmori had taken to mining with remarkable enthusiasm, and she was already being considered for advanced technical training. "How's little Pip doing in school?" Director Kane asked. Marcus's grin widened. "Top of his class in 3 subjects. His teacher says he's never seen anyone pick up mathematics so quickly. And his art projects." Marcus pulled out his personal data pad and showed Director Kane a holographic sculpture that seemed to capture the movement of wind across ice. "He made this last week. Says it reminds him of the day we met." Director Kane studied the sculpture with genuine appreciation. "It's beautiful. And the integration program? Beyond our wildest expectations. We've had inquiry from 6 other refugee families who heard about our success. 3 different species, all displaced by the Devourer attacks." Director Kane nodded slowly. "Which brings me to why I'm here. The Consortium Council has been watching this experiment very closely. There's been a lot of debate about expanding the program." Marcus turned to look at her directly. "What kind of debate?" "The good kind, mostly. Your success here has impressed a lot of important people. Admiral Vex Thor has actually become one of the program's biggest supporters, which I never would have predicted." "And the bad kind?" Director Kane sighed. "There are still those who think you've created a dangerous precedent. Some species are concerned about maintaining their cultural purity. Others worry about economic competition from refugee workers. Politics, you know." Marcus looked back out at the mining operation, where humans and Drakmori worked side by side as if they had been doing it for decades. "What do the results say?" Quote, "The results," Director Kane said firmly, "say that this program works. Which is why I'm here with an offer." She handed him the data pad, and Marcus's eyes widened as he read through the document displayed on its screen. "They want me to run the entire refugee integration program?" Marcus asked, hardly believing what he was reading. "For the whole sector?" "Not just the sector, the entire consortium. Marcus, what you've accomplished here has caught the attention of the High Council. They want to implement similar programs on 12 different worlds, with a goal of integrating over 10,000 refugees within 5 years. Marcus stared at the offer, his mind racing. It would mean leaving Kepler 442c, leaving the mining operation he had built, leaving the community that had become like a second family to him. As if reading his thoughts, Director Kine said, "Before you answer, there's someone who wants to talk to you." The observation deck's communication system activated, and a familiar figure appeared in holographic form. Ambassador Thrill of the Zentorian Cultural Authority looked considerably different than he had 18 months ago. Where before he had seemed formal and cautious, now there was warmth in his expression. "Foreman Chen," the ambassador said, "I wanted to speak with you personally about this opportunity." "Ambassador," Marcus replied, "I have to admit, I'm surprised to see you supporting this program." Thrill's expression became thoughtful. "Marcus, may I call you Marcus? 18 months ago, you did something that challenged everything I believed about proper procedures and careful protocols. You acted on instinct and compassion rather than regulation and caution." Marcus waited, not sure where this was going. "At the time, I thought you were being reckless, dangerous, even. But as I have watched the results of your decision, I have come to understand something about humanity that I had never appreciated before." "What's that?" You see potential where others see problems. When my people encounter refugees, we see security risks, resource drains, cultural complications. When humans encounter refugees, you see new colleagues, fresh perspectives, untapped talents. It is a remarkably optimistic way of viewing the universe. Marcus glanced at Director Kane, who was smiling slightly. Ambassador, I'm not sure all humans think that way. Perhaps not all, Thrill admitted. But enough. And more importantly, humans have the remarkable ability to make others think that way too. The Drakmori are not the only ones who have been changed by this experience. My own people, the Zentorians working on your operation, have reported a significant shift in their attitudes toward diversity and adaptation. They speak of the human approach to problem solving. Creative, flexible, and remarkably effective. The ambassador paused, then continued with something approaching reverence in his voice. Marcus, in my 40 years of diplomatic service, I have seen many species demonstrate their particular strengths. Rigelians are logical, Vorthak are cunning, Klaxons are powerful. But humans inspire others to be better than they thought possible. This is a rare and precious gift. Marcus felt a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with the thermal suit he was wearing. Thank you, Ambassador. That means a lot. The opportunity before you represents a chance to share that gift with the entire galaxy. To show other species that diversity is not a weakness to be managed, but a strength to be embraced. When the hologram faded, Marcus stood quietly for a moment, processing everything he had heard. Through the window, he could see the afternoon shift change beginning. Humans and Drakmori emerged from the mining tunnels together, their voices mixing in the peculiar harmony that had developed over months of working side by side. It's a big decision, Director Kane said gently. Take your time to think about it. Actually, Marcus said, I think I need to talk to someone first. An hour later, Marcus sat in the recreation area with Lirelei, Zara, and Pip. The youngest Drakmori was now almost as tall as Marcus's shoulder, and his scales had developed the bright, shifting colors that indicated a healthy, happy adolescent. He was working on another sculpture while his mother and sister listened to Marcus explain the opportunity he had been offered. You would leave Kepler 442c? Lirelei asked. Her scales shifting to the deep blue that Marcus had learned indicated sadness or concern. Not necessarily. The program would be based here, but I'd be traveling frequently to other worlds, helping set up similar operations. Zara looked up from the technical manual she was studying. Other families like us? Other refugees who need help? Exactly. Families who are running from the devourers, or displaced by wars, or just looking for a better place to raise their children. Pip stopped working on his sculpture and looked at Marcus with those bright, curious eyes that reminded him so much of the first day they had met. Would you help them the way you helped us? Marcus smiled. I'd try to, but I couldn't do it alone. I'd need a team of people who understand what it means to integrate different species, who know how to turn strangers into colleagues. Lirelei tilted her head. You are asking us to come with you? I'm asking if you'd be interested. The program would need cultural liaisons, people who understand what refugees go through and can help them adapt to consortium society. It would mean traveling, working with different species, probably dealing with a lot of bureaucracy. Zara's eyes lit up. Different species? Different technologies? Different mining techniques? Marcus laughed. Definitely different mining techniques. Each world has its own challenges. Lirelei was quiet for a long moment, her scales cycling through different shades as she considered the proposal. Finally, she looked at her children, then back at Marcus. Marcus, she said, when we first arrived here, we were broken, lost. We had given up hope of ever finding a place where we belonged. You gave us more than just jobs or legal status. You gave us the chance to rebuild our lives and contribute something meaningful. She gestured around the recreation area, where other miners, human, Zentorian, and even a few Vorthak, were sharing stories and playing games together. But more than that, you showed us what it means to be part of a community that cares for its members. This place, these people, they have become our home, not because of the buildings or the work, but because of the relationships we have built. Marcus felt his throat tighten slightly. Lirale, if we can help other families find what we have found here, she continued. If we can be part of building more communities where different beings work together and care for each other, then yes, we want to be part of this program. Pip looked up from his sculpture with excitement. Can I bring my art supplies? Marcus laughed. I think art might be exactly what some of these new communities need. 2 months later, Marcus stood on the bridge of the transport ship Rising Dawn, watching as they approached the mining world of Tethys Prime. This would be their third world in as many weeks. And each one had presented unique challenges. The refugees on Altair 7 had been a group of insectoid beings whose collective consciousness made individual job assignments complicated. The families on New Geneva had been fleeing a civil war and carried deep suspicions of authority figures, but each time, the same pattern had emerged. Initial skepticism from local administrators, resistance from established workers, complex negotiations with various bureaucracies, and then, gradually, something remarkable would happen. Humans and refugees would begin working together. Problems that had seemed insurmountable would be solved through creative collaboration. New ideas would emerge from the intersection of different perspectives. Marcus, Lirale's voice came from behind him. The delegation from Tethys Prime is ready to meet with us. Marcus turned to see his team assembled and ready. Lirale had become his chief cultural liaison. Her natural empathy and communication skills making her invaluable in first contact situations. Zara had specialized in technical integration, helping refugee engineers and workers adapt to consortium equipment and procedures. Even Pip, now approaching his second growth phase, had found a role as what they had started calling the Hope Specialist. His art and natural optimism had an uncanny ability to help traumatized refugees begin believing in the possibility of a better future. The delegation from Tethys Prime was waiting in the conference room. 3 humans, 2 Zentorians, and a Klaxon administrator whose posture suggested deep skepticism. As Marcus and his team entered, he could see the familiar mixture of curiosity and concern on their faces. Administrator Morrison, Marcus said, shaking hands with the lead human representative. Thank you for agreeing to consider the integration program. Morrison, a weathered woman with the practical air of someone who had spent decades solving problems in hostile environments, studied Marcus's team with obvious interest. I have to admit, Foreman Chen, when we first heard about your program, we were skeptical. But the reports from other worlds have been impressive. What specific concerns do you have? Lirale asked, her musical voice adding a note of warmth to the formal conference room. The Klaxon administrator, whose name tag read Commander Grex, spoke up with the blunt directness of his species. Resource allocation, security protocols, cultural contamination. The standard concerns when dealing with unregistered populations. Zara stepped forward, activating a holographic display that showed productivity statistics from their previous integration sites. Commander, we've found that refugee populations typically increase overall productivity within 6 months. Their different perspectives often lead to process improvements that benefit everyone. Commander Grex studied the data with grudging interest. These numbers seem optimistic. They're conservative, Marcus said. What the numbers don't show is the improvement in workplace morale, the reduction in turnover, and the innovations that emerge from diverse teams. Administrator Morrison leaned forward. What exactly are you proposing for Tethys Prime? Tethys. We have 47 refugees from the destroyed Kepler 186 system, Marcus explained. They're aquatic Formans, excellent at underwater construction and resource extraction. Tethys Prime has extensive underwater mining operations that could benefit from their expertise. But they're water breathers, one of the Zentorian representatives pointed out. Our facilities are designed for air-breathing species. Pip spoke up for the first time, his young voice carrying the confidence that came from having solved similar problems before. That's not a problem. We've developed hybrid environmental systems that can accommodate both air and water breathers. I designed the ventilation artwork for the Altair 7 facility. It's both functional and beautiful. The delegation exchanged glances, and Marcus could see them reconsidering their assumptions. It was a pattern he had witnessed repeatedly. The moment when beings stopped seeing problems and started seeing possibilities. Administrator Morrison smiled. You know what? Let's give it a try. What's the worst that could happen? Commander Grex muttered something in Klaxon that the translator didn't catch, but his posture suggested he was beginning to warm up to the idea. 6 hours later, Marcus stood on the observation deck of the Tethys Prime Orbital Station, looking down at the blue-green world below. Somewhere on that planet, 47 aquatic Formans were getting their first taste of hope in months. In a few days, they would be working alongside humans and other species, contributing their skills and perspectives to the endless task of building something better. Penny for your thoughts? Lirelei said, joining him at the viewport. Marcus smiled at her use of the human idiom. Over the past year, the Drakmori had adopted dozens of human expressions, while the humans in the program had picked up Drakmori musical phrases and color-shift body language. It was exactly the kind of cultural mixing that made some species nervous and made humans excited. Just thinking about how far we've come, Marcus said. 2 years ago, you were freezing to death in a snowstorm. Now you're helping transform how the entire galaxy thinks about refugees and diversity. Lirelei's scales shifted to the warm golden color that Marcus had learned indicated contentment and hope. 2 years ago, I thought my children would grow up as wanderers, never belonging anywhere. Now Pip is talking about attending the Consortium Engineering Academy, and Zara is designing mining equipment that's being used on 6 different worlds. What about you? Marcus asked. Any regrets about trading your artistic career for bureaucracy and mining? Lirelei laughed, the musical sound echoing pleasantly in the observation deck. Marcus, don't you see? This is art. We are creating something beautiful. Communities where different beings work together, support each other, and build something greater than any of us could accomplish alone. It is the most important artwork I have ever been part of. Marcus felt that familiar warmth in his chest, the feeling that told him he was exactly where he was supposed to be. You know what the best part is? What's that? We're just getting started. There are thousands of refugee families out there, and millions of beings who have never experienced what it's like to be part of a truly diverse community. We have the chance to show them something amazing. Lirelei nodded, her scales shifting through the entire spectrum of colors as her emotions cycled through excitement, determination, and hope. The galaxy is vast, but it is not too large for compassion to cross. As they watched, a transport ship appeared in the distance, carrying the aquatic Foreman refugees to their new home. In a few hours, Marcus and his team would be there to help them take their first steps toward a new life. It was what humans did. They saw potential where others saw problems. They built bridges where others saw barriers. They never stopped believing that tomorrow could be better than today, and sometimes that was enough to change the entire galaxy. Below them, Tethys Prime turned slowly in the light of its sun, its oceans sparkling with the promise of new possibilities. In the distance, stars wheeled through the darkness, each one representing worlds where beings were learning to work together, to support each other, and to create something beautiful out of diversity. Marcus smiled and headed for the transport bay. There was work to do.